All right, well, it looks like we are live now on YouTube, so I'll go ahead and pull up the agenda, but Director Shibahara, if you'd like to get started, we are ready to go.
Excellent. Yes, the agenda would be much appreciated. Perfect.
All right, there we go.
Can you scroll to the top, or are you? There we go. Thank you. And actually down just a tiny bit. There we go. Perfect. So I'd like to call the Engaged Families and Community Pillar Committee meeting to order this November 16th at 6:30 p.m. Let's just do a quick roll call and see who all is in attendance today. So Leticia.
Present.
Maggie.
Present.
Superintendent Carpenter.
He is present. He did say his internet is kind of going in and out. But
Oh, okay. Excellent. That's great to hear. Josh?
Everybody can hear me?
Yeah, we hear you now.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thanks. And I am present.
Awesome. And Trevor?
Present.
Excellent. So first off, I'm just going to review our mission is to equip every student with the knowledge and skills necessary to be resourceful and successful, with our vision being by 2030, the Estacada School District will be the premier school district in the state of Oregon. And our values are to inspire, engage, and achieve. And the first item on the agenda is a board member update. And actually, usually don't have an update, but I would like to share, and I know Maggie was there last night, but I did go to the parent meeting last night with the rollout at the high school. I was really glad I was able to attend, and that's one of the reasons why we moved this to tonight. And that was really, hadn't been a part of that process, actually, as a parent, the actual side of rolling it out and getting feedback. And what I really enjoyed about the process, I mean, we reviewed the top 3, and then why did we think those were the top 3? But I felt like the most valuable part of the process was talking about the bottom 3. And I really liked envisioning what does a 5 look like. I think that was a really helpful strategy to kind of think about that instead of, just complaining, but like really being able to focus in on what would a 5 look like. And then I really liked, so then you had the long-term vision where you're all sharing kind of what that might look like. And then what can we do starting tomorrow? And that was really powerful too, because it wasn't like we're going to just wait, 3 to 6 months, but it's like, what can we do now? And I think that all the parents that were in attendance were, very attentive and responsive and very engaged in the process. I would love to see more parents come, but I do feel it was well run. I really enjoyed it and was glad to be a part of that process. So that was kind of one of my updates. And then I know Maggie at the school board meeting last week, I had mentioned I wanted to bring up, and we can maybe do this at the end, the website process and also the calendar.
Yep, I have those in my notes, so I'm
Excellent.
Ready to have that conversation.
Perfect. So that was kind of just my update. Although, can I just share one more anecdote? I don't know do you talk about the bottom 3 of my child receives regular positive feedback from my school?
We do have it listed a little bit in our improvements in action and barriers section. Yeah.
Okay. I just thought it was really interesting that a lot of the parents were like, should we really be asking? Is that really the right question? Because is it really worth our teacher's time to be focusing on 10% of the kids, that maybe that time should be focused on other things, and only, if it really felt compelled to reach out because something outstanding or amazing. So I thought it was just a really interesting dialogue and questioning that question on the survey. So anyway, some feedback. Superintendent Carpenter, I know you have Wi-Fi issues. Is there anything you wanted to share?
Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. Can I get a thumbs up?
Yep.
No, I just want to say thank you to Director Shibahara for
Did we lose him?
Looks like his luck has run out.
I got a thank you. Wait, oh,
Yeah.
maybe he's back. Okay, there you are.
For sake of Wi-Fi-ness, I yield my time to the rest of the committee. But thank you, Director Shibahara, for attending the rollout and seeing what that looks like first and foremost. And we can talk a little bit more about what harvesting wins looks like and getting authentic buy-in to
Well, it looks like it is out again. And we'll touch a little bit on what the positive communication looks like. I think I did hear that as well in that meeting. And I think the authentic piece of it was one thing that our families noted is necessary for that to feel really compelling. I think one thing that we always say in this improvement science work is what we reward gets repeated, or what we recognize gets repeated. And I think that is one of the roots of that positive communication is if we are intentionally recognizing a specific behavior or a specific change with students, then that's a compelling way to continue positive movement forward for some of our students that are struggling in particular. Trevor, I know you utilize these positive messages with your students. What do you see in terms of the impact it has on students and families?
Oh, it's huge. You know, in my role, I try to make as many positive phone calls as we can home. And that includes for just students that are doing the right thing, but then also students who might have maybe made a poor choice, but then have turned it around. We still make that positive phone call. And the communication that we can have with families of being specifically clear of this is what your child is doing that we appreciate and we respect about them. Parents love that. In fact, I did call a parent one time, and this was just about 2 weeks ago, and it was a follow-up. And as soon as he heard my name, I of course asked, "How are you doing?" And you get that dreaded response from the parent because it's the vice principal. What happened? Here I am hearing the bad news again, type of a thing. And the response was, "I'm doing fine." And I said, "Well, I just wanted you to know about your son. He's doing X, X, and Y, and Z." And the dad you could almost feel him come out of his shell, so to speak, over the phone, and was super excited and like, wow, thank you so much. I always hear from the school when there's in trouble. I don't hear the positive. I really appreciate that. And that blessed me just to hear that from dad. I know that we've also had Leticia. She has been spot on. I mean, when we needed to have some type of a translation or, her to make that phone call, she's on it. And the response back that she typically emails back is that the parents were super excited to hear this positive news about their child. And so it goes without saying that as many phone calls as we can make, or letters to write or emails to send, it does nothing but just continue to strengthen our teamwork that we have with our parents in raising their children. I don't know if that answered your question. I'm sorry. I feel like it did, but please let me know if you need more details.
No, I think it did. And I think that your example is very much the authentic, right? And making sure it's, just not checking a box, but making sure that it's really adding value for both sides, right? For the administrators and teachers that are doing it and for the parents that are receiving that feedback. So I think it's good.
Yeah, thank you, Trevor. That was good insight. I think one of the things I had in the barriers section, and I don't even know if this is a barrier as much as it is something we need to be mindful of, is quality over quantity in our communications. So not always just dialing up the ratios or the quotas, but making sure that they're meaningful communications, just so those families are getting that authentic communication, but also so our staff are having a really good use of their time. So that's something that we continue to have to be mindful of. And then I think we get the desired results out of that positive communication. It's not just to check a box. So I'll go through some of the wins briefly, and then anyone stop me anytime if you have questions. So the first win I wanted to hit on is that rollouts are complete. Our last one was last night, and then at a district level, we had kind of an informal one via Facebook Live today, which I'll talk about a little bit later on, but exciting to see rollouts completed. Most of them were completed last week on Wednesday. And we just noticed a lot of pretty inclusive rollouts, a lot of staff at the tables. If it's a building, I was popping in on some and even seeing like custodians and nutrition services workers and truly all the people that run the building sitting down at the table together. And then also rollouts, as Director Shibahara mentioned, that were inclusive of families. And then I know this isn't our pillar, but I just think it's really cool to mention that there were student rollouts too for the student engagement survey. And I think it's powerful, even if it's just a couple of those voices at the table, to have the voices at the table of the people that we are surveying. So I know the high school and the middle school both did parent rollouts that they really found powerful. Trevor, I hate to put you on the spot again. Do you want to say anything about your rollout experience at River Mill?
Yeah, no, I think I can actually speak for both elementary schools that, we took all the information that came from those parent surveys and we were able to roll that out to our staff. We were able to build some good action plans moving forward. And quite honestly, there's a few things that were on our previous survey rollout last spring that we just hadn't had enough time yet to implement. And so we're adding those, we're keeping those on our action plan. So I think our staffs together collectively came up with some really good things to be able to meet the needs of what our parents are saying. I think the other thing that is needs to be said too is that our parents took the time to really put a lot of comments in there about what's going well, what we can improve on, and if there's anybody to thank. And we decided as a staff, if there was anything in there that we needed to take out, we made sure that we copied that entire all of those comments and we gave it to our staff so that they can digest, because I think our parents took the time to say a lot of it. And yes, I could have synopsis it and threw it into a PowerPoint, but we really wanted them to read every single thing. And I think our staff really appreciated that. I will also say too that and I don't mean to apologize for bragging on Leticia at all, but I mean it with all sincerity that she again worked with our Spanish-speaking families, and this time, Leticia can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe we had 19 Spanish-speaking families that responded on our survey with some comments and stuff. And so obviously some of us aren't able to read those, but we can digest it together as a staff. We figure out what they're saying, and we appreciate that so much. So their feedback was great. It was on point and well received, and we appreciate it again.
Yeah, Leticia, I know you've kind of looked through and you played an instrumental role in increasing the engagement and participation of our Spanish-speaking families. Kind of what was the overall response rate, and then kind of what did you see from the survey response, and what did you do to get that level of response?
I think for me, honestly, it was engaging the families. It was a lot of text messaging, a lot of phone calls, a lot of making sure that I added it to my s'mores newsletter to let them know, please fill it out. I know the parent groups have helped me to inform families and let them know, please fill it out. This is very important. And so I think they remember me constantly reminding them to fill out that survey. So I was definitely proud to see the numbers increase this year from last.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we got about 50 Spanish responses overall, even if they didn't fill out a comment or did from all the buildings. That's a pretty substantial increase from previous years. So exciting to see. So those are some wins, and then there's already evidence that action plans have been put in place. I've seen just anecdotally some of the building staff reaching out to learn more. I know some staff members set some goals around having some more communications going out. I've worked with some teachers on getting s'mores set up so they can keep families more updated on their students' academic progress, grades, and on the standards that they're learning in class. So that's really cool to see. And then one of the new actions that they committed to at the middle school is teachers are going to start learning and taking on Parent Square so that they can send out individual and group communications through Parent Square. I think this will be a quick, easy way for them to quickly update families on how students are doing academically. And it's just a massive time saver. We've already seen this with, I know this is a weird example because it seems like on a very different plane, but we've seen how utilizing it for COVID and quarantine notifications and that sort of things, our notification time goes way down. And that just allows our staff to do things more quickly and more frequently, which is always a win for our families. So I'm meeting with the middle school later this week to start getting staff ready and start training teachers on how to use Parent Square. So we're really excited to move that deeper into the system because we've seen Parent Square be just a really successful and popular tool. And anytime we move something that is a district initiative deeper into the system, we kind of loosen some hold on some of these other apps and communication platforms, and that gets us closer to streamlining things, which is always nice as well. Another one I know that you had mentioned, Director Shibahara, our calendar update. We did that Friday change. So I noticed that in the comment section of our parent satisfaction survey that our school calendar was a little bit difficult for people to view virtually. And some people mentioned they wanted a month-by-month breakdown. So that was just a simple just do it. So we updated it on the website homepage so that you can, that's our second most viewed district webpage, by the way, other than our homepage, is our website page. So it gets viewed a lot. So I wanted to just take that feedback and make it more effective, and then rounded with some staff and families to see if that was more easy for them to read and digest. And we've gotten positive feedback so well.
Yeah, no, I think the format is way easier to read. I think one of the things that I look for on a regular basis, because yeah, it's one of my most visited pages too, is it says calendar and school times, but it has never included school times. And so I struggle to find school times, and I have to go to all the different schools, and so I would love if there's an option, unless I missed it, that it could include school times as well.
It absolutely could. And that's a great piece of feedback. We had that at the beginning of the year, and we had the Wednesday ones as well. And I think in the shuffle, we don't have it prominent anymore. So that is also an easy just do it fix that I wrote down on there. And I'm sure that a lot of other families and probably staff will appreciate that.
Yeah. So that was really honestly my only feedback. And I had forgotten to mention that in previous meetings. So.
Okay, great. And then Leticia did a great job as well of updating the calendar for Spanish speaking families as well, which I know is not an easy process because Spanish words often take up more space. So thank you for dealing with those formatting issues. It's not, even if they can get the gist of something, it's our families deserve to be able to see the months written out in a way that they can understand. So it's always great to see as well. Other wins that I already mentioned, just seeing the buy-in for Parent Square and s'more increase. We recently hit our license limit on s'more, which was actually a win. Exciting to see that people are using it consistently. So just making sure that we're streamlining communication and that we're sending out communication that is necessary and meaningful, not just overloading people with newsletters. But one thing we heard pretty loud and clear from the parent survey was that parents want to hear from their child's teacher. They don't want to just hear from the district, although that's great. Also, they want to hear from their child's teacher. And so I've been looking at some of the teacher s'mores, and there's even one that breaks it down by each of her math classes. And it's just incredible to see the level of detail going over the standards that they're covering that week. And I think it's a really powerful, timely tool for families to know what's due that week, what students are covering that week, what they're expected to learn that week. So I'm excited to see that utilization continue to increase.
Maggie, can I ask a quick question on that? You did say that, we've kind of reached our max participation for our licensure. Is there plans? Because I know there are a couple other teachers that are, excited about utilizing that possibly. So is that going to be something that we can get some more licensures for to use?
Yes, I'm glad you asked. We already bumped it up.
Oh.
It's a relatively inexpensive tool. And I just wanted to make sure that we were as low as we possibly could be so that we weren't wasting money. But when I saw the spots start to fill up before we had to turn anyone away, we bumped it up again. So we are ready to take on any new teachers that are willing to embrace that tool. So
awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. One other thing that I appreciated with that was teachers asking about the translation, because it has translation features, which really helps support teachers when they, instead of it sending emails, they can send a tool like S'more that has that built-in translation, which really supports their communication with Spanish-speaking families. And I know Leticia also translates quite a few newsletters for families as well. And just having that easy Spanish use is really beneficial for some of those teacher communications as well. And I appreciate them reaching out to learn more about how they can support their Spanish speaking families. So it's really cool to see. And then last win I wanted to hit on is conference signups are going well. And even though we wish we could see families in person, I think virtual is a great opportunity to meet with some families that might have barriers with transportation, that might have barriers getting out of the house, or with work, the commute. So I would love to see in the future our conferences potentially be hybrid, even when we are able to welcome people back in person. Leticia, do you want to talk about how conference signups are going and what that process looks like? Because I know you guys are just busier than ever.
Yeah, definitely. I've scheduled probably over 55 families for conferences. I know our bilingual paraeducator over at the high school has scheduled over 20. So we've got at least over 70 to 80 families scheduled for conferences throughout the district. So huge one for us, definitely a lot more than when I first started last year. But I'm glad that our families are seeing the importance between, knowing their children's academic progress and just knowing where they're at per, grade level standards. And it also gives our families the ability to share with teachers, their needs of their children and their strengths. So that's huge.
Yeah, thank you. I've seen it. I think every building has seen it. Just the capacity for us to support our Spanish speaking families has increased, but then their interest and engagement, I've also seen it increase, and those numbers that you had there are evidence of that. So it's really exciting. We know that families staying up to date on their students' academic progress is one of the things that we still need to close the loop on more, and conferences is a big part of that. So getting families in the door to learn about that is a key piece of that.
Or online, not just necessarily in the door.
In the door virtually.
Yeah, because I was going to say at the high school when it was in person, when I went before, I think attendance was very, 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 very low. I'm sure Mr. Searing can attest to that. And then having them virtually last year, I mean, from what every teacher I talked to, they were shocked, how many students and parents they spoke with. So I was excited because that connection, I feel like, is lost as the kids go up in grades. It's really great to have the online option.
It's a very astute observation that we do see. I've seen it as well. The halls that are a little bit more sparse in middle school and then even more sparse in high school. So just changing that platform for the engagement has really seen that increase. So I won't put words in anyone's mouths, but I know that from what I've heard from the buildings, there is a desire and an intention to keep things hybrid, or at least to be more flexible with options for families, because we know this is such a important opportunity to connect with families. So I'll move on to barriers, unless there's anything else anyone wanted to say on wins. Okay. So a couple of things we're experiencing right now is in rounding some of the themes I've identified is maintaining motivation when the low scores are the same. One thing that I do want to point out is that we grew in those low scoring areas, even though they remain our low scores, we did see growth. So we do have evidence that the actions that we committed to previously did work. But it is hard when we still know that these are low areas that we need to continue working on. So I think celebrating the wins as they come up is a way to maintain motivation, and just making sure that we're committing to the right actions. Another barrier is, as I mentioned earlier, just making sure we're doing quality over quantity in our communications. And I think one of those key things is pulse checks with families on how is the level of communication right now. I tracked the comment level of too much communication from last year to this year, because I just noticed anecdotally that it seemed like there was less of the too much communication this year. And there was actually 38% less comments this year of the too much communication vein. So I think we are doing some of the right actions to streamline that communication. I think it's always a work in progress. And especially as we commit to more communication, I want to make sure it's the right communication. Another barrier, I know this is one you're interested in talking about, is this is very much forecasting into the future. And Josh, feel free to jump in on this one also, but we have some website restrictions. That was another piece of feedback we saw a little bit in the parent satisfaction survey was, we struggle with website updates. And one big reason for that is because our back end is very difficult to navigate. It takes a lot of time to do updates, and it is not user friendly. So we haven't been able to kind of spread this tool out as much as we would like to amongst the buildings, and kind of share the caseload of this, because it is so not user friendly. Josh, do you want to talk at all about like what the experience is like coming in as a new person to the district and kind of learning that back end?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say, first and foremost, I'm not a website designer per se or a web developer by any means, but I'd say I'm generally fairly tech savvy and can navigate things like that pretty reasonably well. I did do some page management when I was at David Douglas, and they were using WordPress. I also am pretty familiar with Squarespace, which is another service for making websites for personal and other projects that I've done. And what we're using now in Estacada is quite challenging on the back end as a user to try and just even do basic content changes or updates. I've personally found it quite frustrating trying to navigate it and try to understand how the logic works within how the editors work. And I think just the evidence that many of our departments and other parts of our district use Google Sites, I think, if I understand correctly, is primarily because the user interface is so challenging. Says to me that that's probably a problem we'd want to remedy at some point. And for many reasons, but even just so everything that we're doing is uniform and looks similar and has easy navigation to get from the main page to a department to the school. I think there's some definite challenges with what we're using, and so considering something else, I think would be definitely a very good idea.
Yeah, I 100% understand and agree, because I helped Mrs. Bresco get the Career and College Center area redesigned and revamped and updated. And I do work in the technology industry and have also worked in those other tools. And I know the goal and the intention when Maggie, brought on the new platform was to try and make it easier and more user-friendly so they could maintain and, have a consistent navigation, easier for parents, right? As we navigate through the district, that it's similar navigation. I know where to go for teacher stuff, building stuff, whatever. And it's too much to centrally manage everything, right? Each building ideally would be maintaining their information directly. So my question is as you start moving forward with this process, I'd love to just learn more of what's your RFP, what's your requirements that you're submitting out, or how you're evaluating and deciding what options you're going to look into and pursue.
Yeah, I would like to have, a pretty involved process with input from other people, especially because we want this to be, if we were to select a new service, we'd want it to be something that multiple people could utilize and update. So I really would appreciate input from a broader audience. So if we were to do a transition, we'd do it over the summer. So I think we're hoping to, in January, kind of start looking at our vendors and start doing demos and looking at what some other companies have to offer in preparation for a potential summer switch. I think during the school year is pretty out of the question with as many instabilities as we've had. But I think January is a doable timeline to get it up and running by September, well, late August, ideally.
Right. You mean just kicking off the evaluation process and making a decision by the end of the year to then transition through summer makes sense.
Yeah. So I've identified a couple vendors I'm interested in. Josh has a couple also. So we'll kind of finalize that list prior to winter break, and then post winter break, start setting up appointments with them. And
are you going to create like a committee of like admins, building admins or something to be a part of the evaluation? I mean, like you said,
I would like to have a few people. I'd like to have secretaries are kind of one of the intended end users that edit the website. So I would love to have a secretary or two on there
100%.
And see if they think it's easy to use. I would like to have someone that doesn't touch our website or look at our website very often to see if it looks easy to navigate. So those are some of the things I'm thinking of. Of course, translation is a must as well.
Right. And so is the tech department, sorry, Mr. Stern, is the tech department helping run that process?
Yeah, we would likely bring in Christy and Bryce in January as well, just because they, of course, have requirements for it also, and they have a little bit more insight and knowledge into security and those sorts of things that we, of course, want to be mindful of.
And I would just say, I think you said it, Maggie, too, and I think goes without saying that it would be great before we actually kind of officially launch it, so to speak, that we do gather some parent input, like just have an open house, whatever, invite some parents in here, take a look at this, what do you think, give us your feedback, et cetera, since they're going to be the ones that use it quite a bit probably.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, my charger is not charging here. We just want it to be accessible to our families and accessible to those that edit it, because that's kind of where we're falling short. We improved the format and everything. It's visually a nice website, but it's just not working for what we need it to anymore. It's kind of reached its capacity. So yeah, I'll be excited to keep you guys looped in as we progress further on it. That's very early communication on a big project that we're thinking of. A couple other barriers. This is a small one. Nutrition Services has been pretty courageous in switching their action plan. Their action plan at first was to just get on social media and see how it goes. And they pretty much did that. They checked it off. It's going great. They're still gaining new followers, and that's been a success. Now, one thing that they are low in is perception of healthy meals in our schools. So nutrition services is working to first ensure that the food quality is healthy, and then showcase those to kind of change the perception of school meals. So that's one thing that they're working on. One challenge that we continue to struggle with is pictures of cute kids are always what engages the most. So how can we get creative with a salad with a cute kid, or featuring some of students' favorite healthy meals? So we got to get creative with that, but that's a fun little challenge that nutrition services is working through. And then the last barrier that is really an exciting opportunity, from what we heard from families, is a need to continue to reinforce standards-based learning and reporting communication, not just the how, but also the why. I think those two pieces together are really key. So just an opportunity to reinforce that at all schools, but then also at our teaching and learning level as well.
Yeah, I think just to comment on that one, it's come a long ways. I do think that one of the things that we heard last night is around consistency and up-to-date information for parents, right? And the confusion of Parent Square versus Canvas versus Parent Square app, or not Parent Square, sorry, Power School versus Canvas versus Power School app, and keeping grades up to date and understanding, so it again, it's just, it's a big puzzle, and it's a very important one for everybody. I mean, for teaching and learning, for parents, for students. So I really look forward to digging into this deeper and figuring out how can we, bridge that gap quicker than I think maybe, what can we do sooner than later to do this better as a district?
Yeah, I completely agree. And student success is the business we're in. And so it's critical that families are able, and students themselves are able, to understand how successful they are in meeting standards. So it's definitely at the core of our mission, and I think something that we have a lot of opportunities in. Not only the how of how do I log into Power School, which tool does what, but also okay, I'm logged into Power School. Now I'm looking at a bunch of numbers. How do I know what's up to date, what's turned in, what this means for my child's end grade?
Exactly.
And it will take a video series, but I would like to bump it to near the front of our priority list, because this is a really important piece.
Yeah. And it's not just a video series though, Maggie. I feel like it's also like within the staff, they also need to be buying into what they need to do to make sure that things are up to date and that it's clear to their students what's expected of them to achieve these different, learning standards. So
consistency and the expectations. Yeah.
Because you can launch the video series, but then if you have some teachers that, are following that process, well, then that's great. But then if you have others that maybe aren't, so again, it's consistency too across the district.
It's definitely internal and external messaging. We can't do one without the other. And if there's a deficiency externally, there's usually a weakness that we can address internally as well. So it definitely goes both ways.
Yeah. I just would worry about like launching some video series, but not like addressing internal processes and expectations and communication too at the same time. So gotcha.
And it's going to have to roll out at the building level. And I think the buildings are excited to dive into that work too.
Cool.
So on the vein of improvements that are in action, we have a standards-based learning and reporting video that's launching at the end of this month. We wanted a couple weeks just to talk with staff, kind of as you were saying, and we'll have some staff involved in this as well. But just really starting with our staff and with our community at the 1,000-foot level of why we do standards-based learning and reporting, the why of it, and just the very basic hows. And then we'll kind of enhance understanding from there as our staff is ready and our parents are ready. So we're going to move fast because we know this is a need, but we don't want to move too fast that we skip some steps. Another improvement in action is we had our parent engagement rollout via Facebook Live. Earlier this afternoon, I checked before this meeting, we had 131 views, which is really exciting. Josh, do you want to talk at all about what that format looks like?
Sure. Yeah, well, primarily we were doing our All In for Educated Schools podcast, and we were really happy with a lot of the things about how that was going, but we thought two-way communication was important and we wanted to incorporate that as well, and we couldn't do that in that format. So we saw a lot of success and interaction on Facebook, and so we decided to go move the distribution of that podcast, if you will, to Facebook Live, which we did this afternoon. And I think it went really well. We want to keep the production value higher than some of the other things we've done on Facebook Live. There's times to have a real more casual and simple setup. And in this format, we wanted it to be nicer and higher production value. And so we set up a lot of equipment, and I think it went really well, especially for a first time doing it in this fashion. And so from my perspective on the production side, I think it went really well. There's some things to tweak and things to make a little better. And, you know, the time of day might need to be adjusted, but overall it went well. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to get in depth with things that are going on. But also not so in depth that we're talking hours and hours. You know, it has a reasonable amount of time that we can cover some topics, but get into the nitty gritty as well.
A little bit of a quiet room. The first time we did have a couple of comments. I would love to see more. I think participation is just based off of how juicy the topic is sometimes and how comfortable people feel. But I think that's also a learned skill in our community, is getting more comfortable every day with us actually soliciting feedback and listening to their feedback. So I think this podcast on Facebook Live will be good evidence of that. And already having 130 views after a couple of hours is good evidence that it's reaching the people it needs to. So that's exciting. And then also, as I mentioned before, exciting to have that roll out at Estacada High School yesterday evening. It was great to hear, you know, an actively participating room, even if it was a smaller crowd. And then over the next 30 days, as many of you know, I'm sure we have conferences coming up next week, Monday and Tuesday. Very excited about that. Just a big opportunity for families. And then Leticia is hosting a Spanish speaking parent night on November 18th, which I think is coming up this Thursday. So excited for that as well.
That's great. Lots going on. So perfect. Well, I'm assuming we don't have any public comment or questions. I don't have anything additional I want to add. Does anybody have anything else?
I actually did when we were back talking about our wins. I just wanted to say thank you to Josh because I know he's doing a tremendous work with all the videos, and you know what to us seems like this daunting task. He makes it so simple and easy. And so the videos are just great ways to stay connected with our entire community. And I also know he helped the elementary out last week and adjusted his schedule to kind of film something. So I just want to say thank you, Josh, because what you're doing is tremendous work and we appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, he had to follow us around with the school board workshop tour. So
Yeah, that has 560 views so far.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm really glad. I think, you know, a lot of people don't get the opportunity to come to our district as much as they would like. And so I think those videos are really helpful. So thank you. I agree.
For sure.
And Leticia, thank you. I'm excited to hear how parent night goes. That'll be great to get feedback next month.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Well, I don't have anything else. So I guess we'll adjourn, and then Maggie, you and I can sync on like the date and time, because I know things kind of get wonky, and especially with December and stuff. And I like to make sure that we have some good meaty topics to discuss when we have our meeting. I don't want to just meet to meet. So I'll work with Maggie and make sure we find the right time.
Yeah, I will get it on the calendar and make sure you all know well in advance